Sir, thank you so much for speaking to Republic, and first of all, congratulations for making such a groundbreaking investigation when it comes to AI. You unveiled how AI also comes with its own biasness, more like how AI has a mind of its own. Speak to us about that also, sir.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show today. What has been happening is something that I guess all of us have been experiencing in our own way, and this has been highlighted in a much bigger way when Prime Minister Modi at the AI summit in France, he spoke about the biases within the AI. And I ran some tests on my own on using different AI models, ChatGPT, Perplexity, DeepSeek, and XAI to see what kind of results are they producing. And it was quite surprising. Certain information like about the activities of Sam, the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, were being either declined or they were not being published for whatever reasons known to them. But the same information could be found via a simple Google search, like about his court case battles that he's been fighting with his sister. But OpenAI and ChatGPT somehow is not revealing that. So that set me thinking that what's actually going on. So I started looking deeper and I started asking some questions about being a monk. I started asking about Hinduism. And when I asked it to critique what are the major challenges in Hinduism, it immediately started giving me some prompts. And when I started asking it to do the same thing with other religions, Islam, Christianity, and so on, and the responses started changing. And I found this particularly very, very obvious on ChatGPT, but every form of AI that we have been experiencing has some amount of bias. And now when you deal with a society where you have the millennials and the younger generation where the attention span is very little, how do you provide the best form of information which is unfiltered, which is accurate, and at the same time tangible enough to grasp in a quick reading?
How do you think this has an impact, and where do you think this biasness even comes from?
All forms of AI models are basically trained on data, and you could have multiple levels of biases there. The first bias could be in the data itself. Again, it boils down to the human bias. Which form of data do I want to feed my model? Then on top of that, you could have an algorithmic bias where you develop the algorithms in such a way that it picks only certain forms of data which suits your interests or suits your worldview or suits your perspective and brings that out. Then obviously there is the human aspect to it of why I want to do it, what do I want to do it, and which kind of team I assemble to get this done. So there are these very realistic challenges that we are facing. And the governments, different civil society and tech leaders need to work together to address this, because the whole idea of colonialism was, at least in the Indian context, was the attempt to rewrite history, rewrite our traditions, rewrite our outlook in life as some sort of, inanities which were not needed, and this was being corrected. And we see a similar attempt happening now with this, quote unquote, if you want to call it, as digital colonization that's happening. And that's where I think India needs to step up its game and come up with its own indigenous LLMs so that it caters to the world's requirement through an Indic perspective. Now, what if you have an AI model which refuses or deliberately misinforms you on certain historical events? What if it leads you in a certain way about the contemporary situations in the country or in the society? What if they want a certain narrative to be pushed? So these are very realistic challenge, and in this there is very little that you as an end user can do on part sitting here, say in Delhi or India, because these LLMs are being developed somewhere else and are being governed and implemented from there. So how do the governments plan to address this? How do we as end users want to raise our voice? It's a very, very serious discussion that we need to be having now.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to Republic. This was an insightful conversation indeed, and I'm sure that our viewers have a lot to take away from a conversation like this.